And this week, we're visiting Bob Warner.
Hello, hello.
Hi, Bob.
Hey, how are you, Tom?
Hey, thank you for inviting me over. So, Bob, where are we technically here?
We are in Irvine, in Orange County, in my backyard, which is very small.
It's not small comparatively to other homes. Yes, it is quaint, but it's filled with bonsai, so it's a little different type of environment.
Yeah, so I kind of squeeze everything in on tables. So you'll see things are pretty crowded. Not a
Yeah.
lot of space between the different trees.
So, typical suburban Irvine area.
Yep,
So,
small yard and mostly house on the property.
yeah, that's great.
So,
But
yeah,
yard looks really wonderful, really
thank
kept
you.
together here. So, let's kind of go through some of your trees.
Okay, I have a few trees from Manny Martinez. I have couple of trees from Joe James, and I have this little arrangement here was from Mel that I won at a raffle just
Malachita.
before, just before the pandemic started. It was the October beforehand, and I basically am just letting it grow. I'm not doing anything to it.
Awesome.
That's the way Mel set it up, and so I'm hoping at some point Mel will come back and do a demo at Kofu Kai, and we'll repot it. So
That's kind of cool.
yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah,
It'll be fun.
awesome. You want to talk some of the trees in this bench, and you want to talk about
Sure.
the bench itself? It's kind of cool, actually, how you have this set up.
Okay, well, so I made all the benches myself. I tried to give them a little bit of style, but then I put this,
Corrugated metal, and that's
well,
plastic, isn't it?
it's a corrugated plastic or a corrugated, I'm not exactly sure what material it is, polycarbonate maybe. And I use the polycarbonate on top in order to preserve the wood. Because with the constant watering, I've heard other people's have issues with the wood getting soft or rotted or deteriorating over time. So I made redwood benches, and then I put that over the top, and it redirects all the runoff over to my plants on the side.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
So yeah, it kind of helps. So there's that. So I do bonsai, and I do ceramics as well. And like you, Tom, I've done a lot of work around the house, so I do some woodworking as well.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
But so this is actually one of Manny Martinez's trees that he created, and I just am trying to keep it alive, trying not to kill it.
What was your relationship with you and Manny?
Oh, so Manny used to be the club president at Kofu Kai, and when I first started at Kofu, it was in 2010 or 2011, and they didn't have they had somebody doing their website, but he wasn't doing a lot of work to it, and so the club basically didn't have anyone doing the website. So approached Manny, I said, I've never done this before, have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm willing to try. And he said, okay, why don't you create a website for us, but don't publish it, and I'll have the board look at it and we'll decide. So that's how my relationship with Manny started. And after I completed the website, they liked it, and then Manny offered to train me in bonsai for quite a few years. I wish I had more time with him, but that's how I ended up starting with Manny. And then when he passed away, they had a sale, of course, and I picked up quite a few of his trees.
Oh, that's
So
awesome. Can we get any other trees you want to talk about Manny's? Where we're on the subject here.
sure. There's a twisted pomegranate that's Manny's. It's a bit heavy, but it's a really nice,
Really good muscular twist in those.
Really, really nice muscular twist in the tree. Um, it's got a lot of character to it. And he used to show this tree, so.
Has it ever fruited for you?
Not for me, it hasn't. I imagine it did for Manny. I have other pomegranates, smaller ones, that have fruited and produce small pomegranates. But this one in particular, no, it hasn't fruited for me.
No.
So that's one of Manny's. There's a maple over here. And I just defoliated this 2 or 3 weeks ago, around the 4th of July. And so it's now the 24th. So it's coming back, but that's why it's a little sparse. So.
It's awesome here to have, especially it looks really good, especially in late July here. And it's second flush of leaves. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, and it likes being in the shade, of course, this time of year. So much of the year I'll have it on my bonsai bench over here, but this time of year it likes being in the shade a little bit more, even than the shade cloth that I have up here. So.
You want to talk about that big tree in the background there?
Sure. So this is a bald cypress. This was one of Joe James's trees that I bought from him just before he moved.
When did he move? This is the second time I heard about Joe James' name here.
So, gosh, Manny's been gone 2 years. So this must have been 2 years, about 4 years ago, maybe?
Okay. And it's a bald cypress, I presume?
A bald cypress, correct. And a great, I know you always put your hand in there, but it gives you an idea of how wide that trunk is. That is a wonderful, wonderful trunk, and I was
18 inches Nabari there on that thing.
Really lucky to get that. And then this tree, the Silkova, was also Joe James's tree. I'll get this one out of the way.
Why you leave it this way? That's good. That looks like an old field tree or big old landscape tree at one point.
Yeah, I think it was. And this is a little Brazilian rain tree that I got as a cutting from Manny. It was quite small. Anthony also has one, Anthony Chaluso, and his is quite large. I think Anthony put his in a 15-gallon pot
I just let it grow.
and let it just go wild, and so it's gotten quite large.
How do they do here in Southern California? I'm tempted to buy like a small tree and just grow it out. I just don't have the guts yet. I have the room now, but I just didn't have the guts to do it back when I was in Pomona. And now I'm like, I think I should look at the rain tree again. So they're really hardy in our climate.
Great. This thing grows like a weed. In fact, it's a constant thing. You have to keep up with it. Probably one of the biggest issues with it, though, is they have nasty thorns.
Oh, I just saw that right now. He's talking about those thorns right there. So that's kind of the drawback.
That's the drawback with it. So, but they're actually really easy to work with, other than the thorns.
They backbud really easily, I
They
presume.
They backbud fairly well. They grow like crazy, so you have to stay on top of them.
Awesome. That's good to hear.
Yeah, so I definitely recommend them if you can find them. And then this tree is a California juniper that Harry Harao dug up and gave to my wife. We were up in the Tehachapis. Kim went with me, and he really took a liking to Kim, and he gave her several plants, but this is the only California juniper that, so dear Harry, so I haven't done a whole lot to it, just letting it kind of get used to the pot that it's in. I've had it for probably 6 or 7 years, I think, now.
I think that's a survival story by itself. Getting a California juniper to survive after a dig. Wait a minute. So if Harry gave that to Kim, what happened to the tree that you dug?
Oh, It it's in a landfill somewhere or mulch somewhere. Yeah, I had quite the large juniper that I dug up. It took me all morning, probably 3.5 hours or so to dig up, and it was down in a gully, and I hauled that thing up, and we had to get somebody else who had big loppers to cut off a lot of the branches.
To get it back in the vehicle?
And we only had a Honda Accord, so
Oh
we didn't have a big vehicle to put in,
put
the tree in. So yeah, so that one lasted about 4 years.
Oh wow! So
And
it kind of wimped along.
The first year was fine. You know, the pot that I originally put it in was fine and it liked, and then I transplanted it into a new pot, and it lasted about a year, but slowly deteriorated over that year, and then boom, it was gone. So that wasn't the greatest. I was really disappointed after all the work.
You know, you're not the only one. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people have these same stories. I have the same story. I think I'm like 1 for 7 California junipers. So it's a lot of people say Yamadori that you just dig them up and you put them. It's all this aftercare that you know, that science behind the aftercare that's really important. I think that we don't know that back portion of it really well.
I think that's true. And while it did okay initially, you know, it's that transplanting, it just didn't like it. And from what Manny tells me, every time you transplant it, you got to be really careful because you're taking a chance. You may, even if you've had the tree for 10 or 15 years, you may lose it when you transplant it. Yeah. So he said, do it once.
You got to talk about your big crepe myrtle back there. You know, there's a story behind it. You haven't gotten to it yet, but
no,
I think it's kind of important to put that in.
Yep. That also was one of Manny's trees. So, you know, Manny he used to have three or four students, and he took us all out shopping one day, out to some nurseries in central Orange County. They're, you know, the great big nurseries that are underneath the power lines. And he saw this in a 24-inch box, and it was quite tall, and he liked it.
It was a landscape tree. You're talking about
it was a landscape tree in a nursery.
Box, 36 inch box.
Oh yeah, huge. And so Manny pulls up to it, and Anthony Chaluso is with us, and Manny just says, okay, I'll see what the price is. The price was right. He went over and just knocked the box apart right then and there, and Anthony got his electric saw out and cut the roots right there on the nursery property. We talked to the nursery owner. He said that was fine, leave everything. He didn't care. And so this is Manny's tree that then, again, when he passed away, I was able to pick up.
That's awesome.
So yeah, really, you know, I can't work on any of Manny's trees without thinking about him. And I think, what would Manny want to do with each of my trees? So I really miss the man. When I retired a few years ago, I thought, oh, he and I'll pal around together. And unfortunately, that never got to be. So that's one of Manny's. That's one of Manny's. And then the maple over there is one of Manny's as well. So
that's awesome.
So I do bonsai, but I also do ceramics. And so, you know, there are a few pots that I've made, quite a few pots. Oop, this has weeds in it, so try not to look at the weeds. But that's one of my pots.
So why did you get into ceramics?
So, good question. I got into bonsai. I was interested in bonsai even as a young person, junior high, high school days, but I never really went after it. I never went and learned much about it.
So wait, go back. How did you get interested in bonsai? You're right at that cusp of that question already.
Okay, so it started with just plants. I was interested in bonsai. I thought trees looked really cool when I was in probably junior high, maybe high school, early freshman or sophomore in high school. And I didn't have a place to do it. I was living at my folks' home, of course. And so I started ordering lithops online. They're like a little succulent from South Africa,
Okay.
and they look like gemstones.
Oh, that's
They're,
good.
they're really cool. So I ordered some of those, but then I also ordered this tree as a seedling.
As a teenager.
As a teenager. So it was literally this big and probably in a, whatever those little, come in a 6-pack type thing.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
2-inch square. Yeah. And so I've had this tree for 45 years. It's gone through various different stylings, if you want to call it that. So I've had that a long time. And so I've always been interested in bonsai. And then probably 15 years ago, my daughter actually said to me, "Dad, what are you going to do after you retire? You gotta join a club. You gotta go do something." And I thought, okay, well, she's got a point. I'm not ready at that point to retire, but I thought, okay, I'll pursue bonsai a little more seriously, and that's when I joined Kofukai.
Awesome.
So yeah.
So you're a recent addition to the lovely club that we have.
Yeah, I've been with Kofukai for 10 or 11 years, and I just joined your club, Baikoen, last spring, I think it was, or maybe it was winter. So yeah.
So that's kind of a cool story to get into bonsai. Relatively new in bonsai, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think it shows.
But it's awesome. Let's go back to your ceramics. We're
Okay.
into ceramics on that table over there.
Okay.
So you're now into ceramics.
So
bonsai.
I got into bonsai and was having a lot of fun, but the pots are so expensive, especially if you try to order something online or handmade. Those are just outrageous, to my way of thinking. Maybe I'm cheap.
No,
so
we're all the same way.
So I thought, okay, I will take a ceramics class. And so I started here with the city of Irvine. They have a fine arts center, and I took classes from them. And they want you to do, bowls and cups and plates and that, right? And I kept doing bonsai pots over and over and over. So anyways, the more I do, the more I enjoy the creative aspect of it. But that's one of my...
And it's an irregular pot with a really wavy lip on that?
Correct. And I thought it kind of matched the shape of the tree. And
the color, too. It's a really good color match there.
I think it's a pretty good color match for that tree. And so that's on, they call it Black Mountain clay with a green to black glaze. And oddly enough, this little pot, which is also one of mine, is on the very same clay with the same glaze, but the firing affected it a little differently. And that's just what happens when you're in ceramics. So yeah, I've done quite a few smaller pots. I haven't done anything huge, but probably a third maybe of my trees are in pots that I've made.
Awesome.
So yeah,
that's kind of cool.
Lots of fun.
How was it during the pandemic? I mean, we're kind of getting out of the pandemic, but we're kind of going right back with our Delta variant here. How's that been with bonsai and with ceramic work?
Well, of course, at least Kofukai has not been getting together at all since the pandemic, probably since a year ago, May of 2020, I'm going to guess.
Uh-huh.
And then we really haven't been doing much. We had a few newsletters go out, and I've been watching Tom's videos because Tom's really active. And then my ceramics class that I was taking, or the open studio time at the ceramic studio, that shut down as well.
Oh, that is shut down too.
Oh yeah. In fact, it has not reopened yet. You can do hand building at home, mm-hmm. and then take the pot or the whatever to be fired, drop it off, but there's no working in the studio itself. Oh. So it makes it kind of tough.
It's kind of tough. So it still is pretty tough in this pandemic then.
Yep.
And then let's walk over there to your watering system. So I noticed you don't hand water everything.
No, I hand water some, and so there's a lot of things that aren't on a sprinkler system, but most of my trees are on an overhead sprinkler. So this bench, and then I have another bench on the side of the house, and then this bench as well, all have a sprinkler system. And primarily that's because when we're away, I need the trees to be taken care of.
You don't have a son or daughter or someone who wants to come by and trusted hand.
For quite a few years, we would hire a house sitter, and I would bring the house sitter out in the yard, and I'd say, this is what you need to do and when you need to do it, and I'd write down a schedule and how much water. And generally they were college students, and I'd come back and they would have watered the day we came back or the day before we came back, but not the rest of the week prior. And so things were either pretty toasty or dead at that point. And so
how this is, you have a nice cool microclimate here, really close. You have onshore breeze from the ocean. So once a day, twice a day, 2 minutes, a minute?
So I'm watering right now. It's in late July. I'm watering every other day.
Ooh, every other day, wow.
For about 5 minutes.
Okay.
It may be a little bit long. I may be cutting that back to 4 minutes. But right now, with the shade cloth and the temperatures that we're having, especially the overnight temperatures, and it takes a little time for it to get really hot here. So we'll probably hit 80 this afternoon. I don't know, maybe around 3 o'clock.
I'm jealous.
So yeah, we do get an ocean breeze, which is nice. But we're 5 miles or so from the ocean.
Well, it's closer than I am, I'll just tell you that.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, if you have 1 or 2 tips for our viewers, what would it be, Bob?
Oh gosh, 1 or 2 tips for your viewers. Don't overwater. That's something to kill your trees really quick. Another tip. I think one of the things, as you've seen from my trees, I tend to go with smaller trees. I have a few larger trees, but I've seen a lot of my colleagues or friends, peers, who have done very large trees, and then it gets to the point where they can barely move them. And I'm hoping to do this for a long time, and so I'm sticking with the smaller trees. So I would definitely consider that when you're first starting out in bonsai, is how big a tree do you really want to work with? And the big trees are very dramatic and beautiful, and there's all kinds of good reasons for doing them, and I think they're a little easier to care for. But are you going to be able to move that big tree when you're 70, 75 years old? Because you're going to have these trees, hopefully, for a long, long time.
Awesome. If you guys liked the video, like and subscribe. Thank you, Bob, for everything. I'll see you
Enjoy.
guys next time.